morning dish.
He's the hardest working man in show business. His band's music takes you into the midnight hours. And when you wake up, his voice is back on your radio alarm clock. How on earth did this happen?
Well, Jeff saw me taking out the trash at the radio station.
And he won another award.
But this one is better.
I'm your boogeyman. That's what I am.
It's the Morning Dish with the 2019 Radio Personality of the Year winner, Stephen Phillips.
You paying attention to this, Packy?
And Murphy's own Sherry Raines.
Yeah, you must have given horseback passes to the right guy, Stephen.
Well, giddy up.
And Packy Smith's Shetland pony is right alongside.
You guys know these demo tapes don't just edit themselves together, right?
Well, all right.
3 cheers for Stephen Phillips.
Y'all need to help Stephen Phillips out over there. Out the door and off the radio.
Here's Stephen Phillips.
All right, Bruce Vilanch, how are you doing, sir?
I'm moderate to heavy, like the traffic.
Yeah, but
how are you?
I'm good. I guarantee it. I'm tickled to death to have you on here. I've watched you many times. You've been on the Hollywood Squares, not to mention all the other stuff that you wrote comedy for, like some of the greats. I mean, it's unreal, the stuff that you've been involved in. Billy Crystal, I mean, honestly.
True that. I've been lucky.
Yeah.
I've had fun.
Now, you worked with Robin Williams. You wrote jokes for
I wrote for Robin, with Robin for years. You didn't write for him, really. I used to say I would write the material and throw it into the cage.
Well,
then he would devour it, and we would sit down and we would redo, and a lot of it was on its feet.
I mean, he was just, he never stopped. I mean, to me.
He was amazing. He was a speed freak. Well, at one point, he really was a speed freak.
Right.
He had a big ass cocaine thing happening, and then he left that wife, and it kind of it damped down a bit. But he was always on another frequency. I mean, he was always operating like the speed of a hummingbird.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing.
But you know, the funny thing that when you we've interviewed a lot of people here, and sometimes we had a lot of comedians on, and when they're not on stage, they're not funny. Some of them, but not all of them. You're kind of a very witty guy. I mean, you seem like your own.
What can I tell you? That's me, and I'm also attractive. So there you go. Most comics are like trolls, but not me. I'm a beauty.
There you go.
But they some of them have a certain kind of personality that it comes from within, and they've exploited it over the years, and it's become their stage persona, and they slip into that when they're not in that. When you do that professionally, you're kind of like, okay, I'm just going to wear slippers and a robe. I'm not going to dress up,
right?
Just because I don't have to. So it's not that they're not funny; it's just that they're not working.
Well, I mean, I guess you got a point there, but like when you was on the Hollywood Squares, you did the Hollywood Squares. You had to kind of be on point with that. I mean, some of the stuff that come across.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you only had. There were 9 of you up there, so you had to. When they called on you, you had to shine.
Yeah.
And so so you were on point.
All the time. I love it. I mean, I really do. But now you've been involved in a lot.
It's my favorite thing. I miss it. My accountant misses it more.
Yeah.
It was a fabulous gig. We shot 36 days a year. We would do 5 shows a week and a day. 5 shows on Saturday, 5 shows on Sunday, every other weekend. It was bliss. It was terrific.
That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good gig, man. Then off the rest of the time.
Not bad. Well, I was writing too. I was a head writer, so I had work all the time. But I mean, if you were a square, basically, you just kind of came in those 2 days, or whatever, or one day, depending on how many appearances you were going to make. Because we would do 36 weeks of a year of new shows, and then the other 12 weeks were reruns. So I'm telling you, it was a dream gig.
Well, now you were on. I love Bosom Buddies back in the day when it was on. You actually had a big part in that, didn't you?
Wow, I did an episode. I played a gourmet hot dog eater. With Tom Hanks quits his job and goes off and runs a hot dog stand. And I had one scene with him, and this was before he became Tom Hanks. He was Tom Hanks. He was, on a sitcom, and we had a great time doing it. And that's actually when I met him, and we've been friendly ever since. And I've worked with him a few times on other things.
I know he's really. I mean, he's exploded over the years.
He's great. He's the mayor of show business. I mean, he is, the greatest guy. And I mean, he's like the old school Jimmy Stewart, Jack Lemmon kind of movie star.
Right.
Very down to earth and very everyman, Mr. America, and this represents all the stuff that's really good. I mean, there's no surprise that he played Mr. Rogers.
I mean, honestly, yeah, and he did great on that, no doubt.
He did great. He got an Oscar nomination. He's terrific.
Well, one of the things that I found kind of interesting is that you're lifelong friends with Richard Gere. You're actually better looking than he is, but it says the way I'm...
Richard Gere, well,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I know. It's sad how he's let himself go.
Yeah. So
I've known him a long time. I have known him since he first came out to Hollywood. We used to hang out. And he was staying in a house, a photographer, Herb Ritz, who got famous for doing all those Madonna album covers and videos of hers. He directed a lot of them. And Herb had taken a picture of Richard, like in a garage with a whole bunch of tires and motor oil all over his body, wearing like Haystack Calhoun kind of Oshkosh Bagosh and no shirt.
yeah.
And somehow people took notice of that, and he began getting auditions and wound up becoming a movie star. But at the time, he was just another guy who was flopping at Herb's place, and we got friendly there.
Wow, he seemed like a good guy.
Yeah, he is. He is. His heart's in the right place, and politically, we're aligned. But he's lived in Connecticut. He's had several wives and several different children, and it's a complicated existence.
Yeah. Well, now you work with Billy Crystal. I mean, he is another great. I mean, that you.
Yeah, I've known him for 100 years too. I used to be a journalist in Chicago, and I met him when he appeared at the Playboy Club. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Playboy Club.
I am old enough. Yes, I am old enough.
Okay, so you know what it was. It was like Playboy. It was like people would go to pretend that they were Playboys, that they were hip Playboy types, and it was famous for the bunnies, the waitresses, who all looked like they were stacked because the outfits were aerodynamically designed.
Right, I'm with you.
So everybody looked huge, and he had a lot. He had a lot of performers. Had a lot of very hip comics and singers played there, and that's where I met Billy.
Well, down here in Georgia, we don't have the Playboy. We got the Plowboy Club. We're all a bunch of hillbillies.
Exactly right.
Yeah, we're a bunch
Good
of...
news.
Yeah.
Good news for Shania.
There you go. I guarantee you that. But now, tell me something else that you actually done some stuff with Dolly Parton?
I have. In fact, I'm doing something right now where we're working on a musical, which an idea I came up with during COVID. And she's doing a lot of stage stuff. She's developing. She's not going to be in it, but she's developing it. So we're working on that. But I go way back with her to her epic failure at television series, which was in like '87.
Wow.
It was they were trying to turn her into Carol Burnett, which of course she is not.
Oh,
and
no.
It didn't work out. It didn't. But we had a lot of fun. I mean, after the first round of shows where it became clear she was not going to succeed in that format, I and several others said to her, let's just make every show a special. And they gave us all this money, so we went everywhere. We went Dolly in London, Dolly on Broadway, Dolly in Hawaii. And that's when she opened Dollywood, because it coincided with that. It was Dolly Goes Home for Thanksgiving.
I remember that.
And opened a theme park.
Yep. And that's a big thing. The theme park, there's a lot of people in this area go to that because it's not that far up there, Dollywood.
Oh, well, at the time, I used to say, it's the best half day you'll ever spend.
Yeah.
It was really quiet. The entire family was on the payroll, and the highlight was clog dancing at noon. And now it's become like roller coasters and timeshares and all kinds of stuff. So I haven't been back. I was going to go. I was actually going to go I did a show in Nashville a year ago, just before Christmas. I was going to go down to Dollywood for Christmas, and then I had to come back to L.A., and then everything shut down.
Yeah, that's aggravating. Well, if you come back down here, holler, I'll go with you. I know all the ins and outs.
Right.
There you
we'll
go.
Drag you out of the Blue Ridge into the Smokies.
There you go. I guarantee it. But I don't know. You can't get real close to Dolly unless you're standing behind her, but she's a real sweet lady. She does a lot of stuff around here for the kids and this, that, and other.
She's very sweet. It's better to stand in front of her because she's bound to pitch forward sometime.
There you go.
Because she's just, she's challenged gravitationally.
Yeah. Now you're still working. I mean, the COVID stuff shut everybody down, but you're still doing.
Well, writers write. I could sit at the computer, commando, and work. And as long as I don't stand up and do a Jeffrey Tubin, I'm okay.
Right.
It's just very. You have to remember, you're naked. Don't get up.
Yeah.
But writers. I mean, I haven't made a big deal about it because a lot of people, other performers, were out of work. I mean, people who work live, there just was nothing for a year.
Yeah.
And even film and television only started up fairly recently and gets shut down the minute somebody walks in with a bad test. They shut the place down.
Right.
So I've been very lucky because I can continue and things keep developing because people need to be entertained and somebody has to come up with this crap.
I think they're begging for it now to be entertained. I mean, they've been shut down so much, it's unreal, and I know our show has skyrocketed its boom because, everybody likes to listen and have something to do with that.
So you're on the morning drive time, right? So people are waking up and...
Yep. Dreading going to work, like, I don't want to go. I'd rather do this or rather do that. So
I'd rather listen to this.
you actually, now you write comedy. I mean...
Yes.
I don't understand that. I mean, you look at the world sideways. I do. I mean, we cut up and go on over here all the time, but I can't imagine. You write a joke and then, okay, I got this great joke and I'm going to sell it, or how do you make money with that?
If you're a writer, you have to, and you're not a performer, you have to go find some place to sell it. And for that, you begin pitching. I'm sure you get submissions from people who want to be writers there, and they say, do this on the air. And you wind up giving away a lot of it until somebody calls you up and says, would you write me some stuff and I'll pay you.
Right.
And that's how it begins. And once that happens, people tend to get bitten by the bug. But that is it. I mean, every writer I know sits down. They used to have notebooks and pads, and now, of course, they just shriek into their phones and hope it doesn't get erased. To remind them of something funny that they thought of that would be a good joke or would work into some kind of material.
Well, I grew up. I mean, I love all this. Older comedians, I guess, is kind of what I lean towards. But now it seems like everybody's got so sensitive about their whoever they are.
It's insane.
I mean, how is that?
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really nuts. It's not even like, oh, you offended me. It's like, you offended me, you must die.
Yeah.
You must no longer work. You must no longer have an income. You must no longer be visible on the planet because I didn't like this joke. I mean, it's crazy.
I think we make fun of everybody here, and nobody's left out, and it's kind of what everybody expects because it's just the fun. But I think you ought to be. If you can't laugh at yourself, I mean, it's a sad day. And that's kind of
you often don't know that you are treading on dangerous turf because you're just not aware, or you grew up a certain way and stuff was okay, and now you discover it's not okay, and I mean, I was always fat, so I always did a lot of fat jokes, and then somebody said, "Oh, you're fat shaming," and I said, "Wow, yes, not really.
Right.
I'm making fun." It's just like I don't equate that with shame, with saying, "Oh, you're fat. We make jokes about you." It's like there's some things about being fat that are very funny.
I mean, honestly, I'm with you. Yep. And
but then once you start getting into these political discussions with people, all the funny leaches out of the room.
Yeah.
It's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the problem is people who are keyboard warriors tend to lose their sense of humor. They just don't, they're so busy fighting some battle. And it's been terrible during COVID because a lot of people who would otherwise be occupied have nothing more better to do than go online and publish the first draft of what they're thinking without any filter or any editing.
I know there's
so they
always
commit a crime or they're reacting to a perceived crime, and it's not fun anymore.
There's always that one.
That's the unfortunate part.
Always that one. It's just like when you go out, when you got a bunch of buddies going with you, and there's always that one guy that just like, hey, let's not take him, and they're like, oh, we have to, but it just sucks the fun right out of the room.
Right. He's the one who winds up getting drunk and doing racist jokes and homophobic jokes and big tit jokes and all those.
Everybody gets
those things that you can't make fun of anymore.
That's a daggum truth. I'll guarantee it. So, but anyway, so now do you still do stand up?
Yeah, I call it sit down. What I do because I tell stories mostly about my life in the business, and I do political stuff. I do something topical all the time, but I mostly just tell stories about the situations I've been in, and I don't do it a lot. I don't do it. I'm not a club comic. I tried it, and it's not for me. To be comic number 34, and you're playing to that room full of people who they haven't come to see you. They've come either they've come to see the headliner who they know from television, or they've come just for an evening of getting drunk and laughing at things.
Right.
And so they're not paying attention. The energy in the room is different. I only play to places where I know they've come to see me. They know who I am, and they get me. Well, and so I play college campuses, and I do theaters, and a lot of that kind of corporate stuff. Corporate stuff is the most fun, because they hire you to come like Coca-Cola and do their lunch, entertain at their lunch or their evening thing or something for a convention they're having. And they said, I sit down with whoever the guy is who's doing the hiring, and I say to him or her, who can we make fun of, and who can't we make fun of? And so I craft a bunch of material about them, and they can't believe that you know anything about them when you get out there.
Yeah.
And they're like delighted.
That's
the most fun. They pay a lot of money, and you don't have to do any kind of interviews, and you don't have to sell any tickets.
Oh.
What could be better?
Oh man, you can't beat that. I'll guarantee it. We're coming up on a break. Let me ask you something. If somebody wants to follow you, and where do they go to?
I would say go to wegotbruce.com.
That's got it.
And there's a guy there in Panama City, Florida, who's running this site, who knows where I am and knows how to get a hold of me and all that. But I don't really. I twat not. I'm not a Twitter person.
I'm with you. 100%.
I mean, I'm there. I have an account, but I never use it. I read other people's things, and I look at naked pictures. All the good things about Twitter.
Well, man, I sure do appreciate your time. I guarantee you, we got to get to break it. You're great.
It was fun. You got me out of the house where they're jackhammering.
There you go. So, all right. Well, we'll talk to you next time.
The dog looked at me and said, "Take me with you."
There you go. You get back down this way, give me a holler. You got my number, and I'll take you out.
All right.
I can take you out to what we call supper. Y'all call it dinner up there. We call it supper down here.
Exactly.
So, anyway, thank you, man.
All right. Have fun.
All right, bud.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This is Stephen Phillips, host of The Morning Dish. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we have a lot more interviews out there to listen to. Plus, you can listen online every morning at WJULradio.com or Lake 97.7 WJUL. And give us a like on our Facebook page, The Morning Dish.